continuing on my video request, this is my other video camera that has the powerful battery. So I'm going to continue. I'm going to bypass Gypsy Hustled because he wants me to watch a documentary or whatever first. So let's go up to Robin Ann, whose request video I just did beforehand. So Robin Ann, he goes such as this is what he says. Kyle, have you ever pondered the possibility that at some moment you could discover that you have been extraordinarily deceived by some notion, misconception at a core fundamental level? Say a blind spot or distortion in your own consciousness, which would serve to radically alter your entire perception and experience of the nature of reality, existence, life. I say this taking into account that it seems evident that this is the way the universe evolves, by breaking down old systems to give birth to the new. What do you think your soul gambling blind spots could be? For example, and this is not an implication, just being creative. What if you found out that Bashar was actually a recruiter for some super advanced Scientology-like or something more bizarre group of entities, ultimately leading the human soul into the same shithole or worse as the reps? If there was some critical and indispensable missing link standing between the human soul and its true sacred divinity that no other entity, however benign, was allowed to share with us, what could that be? Okay, wow, interesting. You're like Robin Ann, you're kind of like Gypsy Hustle. You're giving me the deep questions. Okay, so have I ever pondered the possibility that at some moment you could discover that you have been extraordinarily deceived by some notion, misconception? Yeah, at a core fundamental level. Yeah. I think it was Rousseau who mentioned that people should consider the reality of the opposing viewpoint. And the people who do that, oh my God, dude, imagine when human beings can actually do that. Imagine how fascinating of conversations we would have with each other. When you could actually have a two-way conversation with with somebody. Because you can't have a two-way conversation with a fucking Scientologist. They'll just walk away from you. You can't have a two-way conversation with a fundamentalist Christian. I know that for a fact. I was in South Korea and I met a bunch of Canadian and American fundamentalist Christians, and I was hanging out with them every single day pretty much for hours for like 2 months, and because they were trying to convert me, and I guess they thought that they could convert me because I kept showing up and talking to them, and I told them from the beginning that I wanted to philosophize, and then they had this final day where they tried to pressure me to convert that day, like it was some kind of sales pitch or some shit, and and it was really put the heat on. I was sweating, and anyway, I came in. And I was busy, and I came in a couple weeks later, and they're like, what the fuck you want? Like they couldn't convert me, so now I was nobody again. And I never got the chance to express anything that I believed about anything. Only like here and there, but at the last day, they would all there was like 3 guys, like gangbanging me. And they'd just say the same exact fucking thing. Taking turns saying the same thing. Hammering it. That's not a two-way conversation, dude. So they can't have a two-way conversation. Their fucking life depended on it. They can't do it. And it's too bad. You just can't. And a lot of people, you can't have a two-way conversation maybe because they're not focusing on what you're saying, and you're just giving them an idea that they've not have thought of before. So now they start going on some tangent, or they get upset and they don't agree with you, so they start screaming at you, and then you scream at them, and then they give up and they run away from you, and it's really difficult to have a really deep two-way conversation with a person. And it's even more difficult to get them to even try to contemplate the completely opposite idea. Like ask some fundamentalist Christian what they think about reincarnation, and they'll be like, I never thought about it, and I don't even want to. Fuck you, So it's a great thing to do. I do that. And in fact, I've talked about that in a lot of my videos, that it's great to try to, imagine that something that you believe is true. And that, yeah, and like what you say, oh, you didn't say it. I thought you did. Yeah, see, one thing is like channelers. Like the channeler Bashar. I could have sworn that you mentioned his name. But that's a good example because 4 years ago I came across. See, I've been in seeing psychics and channelers and that kind of stuff for a long time, and I believed all of the ones that I went to, and they've said even like specific stuff, and they say stuff that is very consistent. Like that I have a very Native American vibe to me. A lot of people have said that. 3 that I can think of right off the top of my head. 4. Sorry, I think I got kind of sidetracked. Oh yeah, no, you did mention Bashar. Yeah, but anyways, 4 years ago, yeah, I discovered Bashar, and I thought Bashar was awesome. He's saying lots of specific stuff, talking about parallel universes and where he comes from, and explaining the aliens here, and who the grays are, and who the half gray hybrids are, and they want to live here on a planet with us, and all this crazy shit. That is consistent with what other psychics and alien, contactees and stuff say. And, skeptics like to say, oh, they're just getting the ideas off themselves and creating a fantasy world, with themselves, kind of like a team of writers creating a Star Trek episode, and they're just agreeing with each other because they like it. And, but I think that's how you find truth, is by tapping into your subconscious ideas about stuff and just sharing your, vomiting out ideas, and the ones that are consistent in society are the ones that float to the top, and those are the ones that are real and true. That's how we find truth. But yeah, I have, so I believe Bashar, and I've said that I believe Bashar, and I think it's real. But I have sat around and I thought, well, what if one of 2 possibilities? What if Daryl Anka really is channeling an entity, but the entity is totally full of shit and just making stuff up? And what if Daryl Anka is just a really good actor and he's just acting? Well, and some people are like, oh, he's the devil, it's dangerous. Well, there's one golden rule, that if you live by this golden rule, there's no danger whatsoever, ever, of anything bad ever happening to you, ever. And that's that golden rule of freedom, democracy, allowing people to express their ideas about stuff. If anything becomes autocratic, that's when insanity comes in. That's why Scientology is completely insane, because it's autocratic. They have to follow everything L. Ron Hubbard said to the T, and nobody can think for themselves. Nobody can, and even within the organization now, nobody has any control except for the guy in charge, and so he drove him crazy. Absolute power corrupts absolutely, and so as long as you keep the conversation going, and then you can go, okay, yeah, sure, maybe Bashar is full of shit, maybe Daryl Anka's full of shit. Who fucking cares? It's sparking new ideas in people, and those new ideas will then spark into other new ideas. And if you study history, you will understand that. As soon as we invented the printing press in 1431, and as soon as Martin Luther started translating the Bible into German, and all of these different scientists from around Europe started communicating with each other, like Kepler and Poland, and talking to Galileo in Italy, and then Newton in England, getting the ideas from them, and these guys knew each other. Kepler and Galileo were buddies, even though they never met each other, communicating. That's what created the scientific revolution and the religious renaissance and Reformation. It's from people communicating. That's what people thinking for themselves, and then people invent new things, and those new inventions become new inventions. Now we're in the age of information where we can all communicate through television and telephone and everything. And so now the invention gradient has just shot straight up. Every 2 seconds, there's a new invention. Every 10 years, it's like you're living in a whole new world. And that's from people thinking for themselves and communicating with each other. It's the golden rule of a democratic society where everybody gets to contribute and everybody gets to say whatever the fuck they want. If you follow that rule, then we will find truth, and we will all create a heaven on earth and ascend and become gods and all that cool stuff. And see, that's the cool thing. And Bashar hasn't violated any of that. You can ask him anything, and he has an idea, and he doesn't say anything about like forcing people to think anything or anything like that. And even the guy Daryl Link is a really nice guy, and he understands this stuff really well. But and he also has a job, by the way. He's not it's not like he's just doing it for the money. But yeah. But I have pondered. Yeah. What if he's full of shit? Okay. So let's do that. Let's ponder. He's full of shit. Okay. Let's ponder. One good thing to ponder is, okay, let's ponder that the Earth is the only thing in the world, the only planet in the world. Number one, I think there are aliens all over the place, because people who think that there's no life outside of the Earth anywhere in the cosmos, they know that, and you're not going to discuss it. Then it's not up for discussion. So that's like that's closed-minded. That's like autocratic. They have their idea and they don't want anybody else to contribute. I know that because I was in Chile for 5 years, and that was one of the subjects of the conversation classes, English classes that I'd have. And they always say the same thing. And it would even get uglier than that. Once this kid tried to tell me I was nuts. And how could I possibly ask him that? And everybody knows there's no life anywhere else. And that was the last class I had with him. And, and this other guy, he was like, no, there's not. Next question, like aggravates him. And I did tell people, like regular people in the street, like about that stuff. And they'd be like, what? Like they'd never heard it in their entire freaking lives, So, and from that alone, that they're full of shit. Anybody who already knows what they know and they don't want to tell you why they know that and they don't want to hear anything else and they want to discuss it, they're wrong. They don't. They're the ones who are keeping their head in the sand like an ostrich. And it's the person who you can have a two-way conversation with and bring up new ideas. I'm going to do a video about Scientology pretty soon, but L. Ron Hubbard was like that. If you watch the movie The Master, remember there was that scene where the guy's like, dude, you're full of shit. You're totally autocratic. You have to have people, being able to contribute and stuff. And he's like, his face, Philip Seymour Hoffman's face turns all red, and he's like, pig fuck. And then that night, Joaquin Phoenix and the sun beat the shit out of him. And that's the stuff that happened in real life. And I was listening to a speech by L. Ron Hubbard, and it was almost the same exact thing. L. Ron Hubbard's saying his bullshit, and some guy had an idea about what L. Ron Hubbard said, which was really valid, and I can't remember what it was. And L. Ron Hubbard goes, no, it's not. Like a little kid, like a bratty little, no, it's not. And then he continued on saying what he did. He didn't address it. He didn't address the logic behind it. He didn't give the guy kudos for having his own opinion. And that guy probably had the shit kicked out of him that night and was kicked out of the church. Because the only people he tolerates is people who just sit there and go, oh, aha, you're so funny, you're so smart, haha. But anyways, that's another video. But the thing is if you follow the golden rule, then that's where the truth is. And that the truth will become real, because if you look at history, which is fact, science, real, you can't dispute history. Because all the different stories come from multiple sources, and you just know it's happening like that. And then that the world's getting better. So if you know that the world's better now than it was before, and it was better, 100 years ago than it was 200 years, and then we know in the future it'll be even better. So we're barreling towards the future. And if you believe in aliens, and that they're there above us, and so that we're going there. We're going to where they are, so we're getting better. But yeah, I have thought about the idea that maybe possibly we are. The Earth. Let's just put our mindset in. Okay, we live in a world where the Earth is the only planet ever in existence. Well, you know how many different explanations we're going to have to fill in then? to make everything else make sense. Well, then who in the motherfuck made Baalbek Temple in Lebanon? Who made the pyramid? Who made all of these other giant megaliths all over the world? Who made the crop circles? Throughout the hundreds of years, who made the crop circle in 2 seconds when it was raining in the middle of a fucking rainstorm? Who, like, why do all of these people describe the same exact thing when they get abducted by aliens? You'd have to fill in the blanks in so many different ways. And so then you could be like, all right, well, maybe ancient Egypt had a shitload of trees all over the place that they piled up, and they did it the way they say, even though they've tried to tug those 300-ton stones around, and they couldn't even do it. But some Japanese crew tried to do it. They couldn't even pull one of those things more than a couple feet. But see, that's science. See, now we're violating science by trying to say that, and logic, trying to say that see, humans couldn't have done it. And if the humans did it, then where did they go? Where did their society go? It must have been technology from out there that they brought to us and then went away. Or or maybe maybe there just was some kind of society that had some kind of technology, like an anti-gravity technology that they discovered that we haven't. And we know that anti-gravity technology happens with sound. You can even see the YouTube videos of it, levitating bowling balls and stuff with sound. So maybe, So then you would just have to fill in all the blanks. Just to consider the other side. But see, the thing is that the people who are skeptic of the open-minded reality, the way it really is, they're not even going to do that. You can't get them to do that. They'll just say no, and they'll just say no, and we have proof of people. You tell somebody a truth and they just deny it, like somebody who's told that they have terminal cancer. Though the first reaction for a lot of people is they deny it. But it's good. It's a really good exercise to go through. For example, fundamentalist Christians. Okay, there's a lot about what fundamentalist Christians believe that I disagree with. Stuff like, there's no reincarnation. Jesus Christ died on the cross to alleviate all of our sins, which I don't agree with. But there's another way that you could translate that so that it's true. What they say is true, and that nobody has to disagree. Jesus Christ died on cross because before then they would sacrifice animals, okay, which is a total waste of time and money, just to sacrifice an animal, thinking that it's gonna make you win the battle against the other guy. So what, now he sacrifices an animal? So now what, if you sacrifice 2 animals and he only sacrifices 1, then the gods are going to like you more or something like that? So then Jesus Christ, maybe you could say, okay, so Jesus Christ was the last sacrifice. He said, okay, sacrifice me so that you don't ever have to sacrifice any animals again. Or sacrifice me so that I can be the great example to society that I am the person who gave my life up because I love everybody and spread the word. And so they're like, oh wow, this guy, he knew so much, he was so smart, and he gave his life up for everybody, and he's the ultimate sacrifice, so he died for our sins. There's a good way to translate it and say, okay, so yeah, the fundamentalist Christians are totally correct. I agree with the fundamentalist Christians. So do you agree with me? See, this is what those fundamentalist Christians would do. So do you agree that do you believe in God? Well, yeah. Do you believe in the Bible? Yeah. Do you believe that everything in the Bible is true no matter what? Yeah. So now you can interpret the Bible however you want. You can say, oh, look at this passage in the Bible that says all men should cut their hair. And you can be like, all right, well, yeah, I believe that because when you go to war, you don't want the enemy to grab your hair and cut your head off, or thou shalt not eat pork. Yeah, I agree that they shouldn't eat pork because in those days they had mad pork disease, and then the pigs were living in sewage, and people were getting poisoned by eating feces infested pig meat. So yeah, I agree with that. And God said it. Yeah, the alien God. See, the Jews, God was alien. So yeah, the aliens was like, hey Moses, tell your people that not to eat so much pork. It's going to make them sick. So yeah, I agree. And then you can have an argument on how to interpret the infallible word of the Bible, but then of course you can't do that, because then they're like, no, that's not how you interpret it. You interpret it the way that I interpret it. Well, see, now we're into autocratic bullshit again, where you can't have a two-way conversation. And so you just broke the fucking golden rule. So now you're out. You lose. You see? You have to have the golden rule. It's like the Constitution of the United States of America. All men are created equal. We have freedom of speech, freedom of religion. We follow the Constitution. We have a functioning society. You break those, then we're going to have a crumbling society. You break the rule of democratic sharing, and so now it's autocratic, and one guy says how it is forevermore, and everybody has to follow him. That's a recipe for disaster. No, but that's another video. That's the video on Scientology I'm going to do pretty soon. So anyways, so there's the preamble. Let's read the rest of what he had to say. Have you pondered the possibility that at some moment you could discover that you have been extraordinarily deceived by the notion, misconception at a core fundamental level, blind spot or distortion in your own consciousness? Yeah, it's a fun exercise to do, which would serve to radically alter your entire population and experience of the nature of reality and existence life. Well, it would have to be like a scientific proof that we're the only people alive. Or maybe you would, if you could bust Bashar red-handed, for example, you could say, I don't know how you would do that, though. You could ask him a question, and then you could prove him to be wrong. But, like, you could say, I couldn't even come up with an example, because he talks about really esoteric stuff that you wouldn't really couldn't back up with our technology anyways, but, yeah, like he said in one video that he's in a spaceship directly above Phoenix, 300 miles above Phoenix or whatever. And then so maybe somebody had like a super powerful telescope and they filmed it. But then he could say he's in another dimension. So who the fuck knows? You can't prove it. What would completely alter my experience of life? Okay, well, maybe if it turns out that my mom's a serial killer. Okay. See, I think my mom's a really nice, sweet lady. And then next thing I know, tomorrow my mom's like thrown in jail for killing 5 people, and they have proof because her fingernails are all over, and then fingerprints, and then she like admits to it. That would alter my idea about the world tremendously. But then I would go in and I would talk to her and I'd ask her like why she did it and how she got away with it, and but that would never happen, because I keep in touch with her that there's no way she would even have the time. So maybe she has like some bank account hidden or whatever that she says she's working, but she's really using the money to go out and travel around and kill people. Okay. So what? See, I've never had an experience of somebody turning out to be completely opposite, like they're a serial killer or something, People do change, but they usually change for the better, like the drug addict. He was a hopeless drug addict when he was a teenager, and now he's totally healthy, There's some of those examples. But anyways, that's about as far as I can go with that. But see, this video, what you're talking about, asking me to talk about, you shouldn't be asking me this, because I'm an open-minded person. You need to be asking this question to these closed-minded people, like a fundamentalist Christian or a Scientologist or a fundamentalist Muslim or an ignorant-ass atheist or somebody like that. If you're going to ask me the question, all I can do is analyze them, because I'm not like that. And I follow the golden rule and all this shit. So, I'm coming up with examples that are totally unrealistic, because I'm not one of these people. I'm not the reason why you would even need to ask that question in the first place. Anyways, I say this taking into account that it seems evident that this is the way the universe evolves. Breaking down old systems to give birth to the new. Yeah, but the way that old systems get broken down to give birth to the new, you don't break down an old system and then give birth to a new system. You give birth to a new system that grows slowly, slowly, slowly in the background of the old system. And by the time the new system gets bigger, all of a sudden people turn around and they go, oh shit, look at this new way to do things. I think we're going to switch over and do that. Like the invention of the MP3 player. People would be using the CD players, you know, and then gradually the CD players start getting less and less used, less and less used. More and more people use MP3 players, more and more, and then one day you turn around and you notice that everybody's using the MP3 player because it replaced. You don't have to break down an old system. Let the old system of autocracy and you know, oversimplified judgment of other people and fascism and illegal and Nazism and legalizing weed and all that kind of stuff. Let all these idiots believe what they want to believe and everything. And while the subculture gains power and gains, you know, through communicating with each other and expressing their ideas, and then we will just replace it. It'll be a very non-violent coup, just a simple, agreed upon, peaceful transition from one system of being to the other. You know, for example, religiously, we have all the New Agers believing the aliens and stuff. You know, every year, more and more people believe in more aliens here. Every year, more and more people are believing in reincarnation. Every year, more and more people are believing that marijuana is actually a good healing medicine and not a destructive thing that's going to make you burn your house down, like Nancy Grace tried to say the other day. You know, and just more and more people, and then we just take over, you know. You don't have to have if you have like a destructive like revolution where you take them down, you could have something like the French Revolution that took 20 years to go up. You know, they killed 10,000 people in the course of like 10 months. You know, they killed 50,000 people in the course of a couple of years, and it's just you know, I mean that's just an example. That they had their own reasons for why that happened, but. Because there was so much autocracy, you know, there was no actual communication going on. If we allow people to communicate with each other and have their own ideas and express their own ideas, then there will be a very peaceful transition of power and, you know, one system just replacing the other and just growing up. And growing up, and by the time it's developed enough and there's enough people who believe it and have it all worked out and hammered out, then you transfer it. It's kind of like, you know, like say Carnival Cruise Lines, they have the old Queen Mary, right? They're using the Queen Mary for all their customers. Queen Mary. Meanwhile, they're in the dry dock, they have Queen Mary 2 being built. Okay? Now when Queen Mary 2 is totally built and hits the waves, it floats out right next to Queen Mary 1, and everybody goes, oh wait, look, Queen Mary 2, Queen Mary. Okay, well then everybody gets off Queen Mary 2 and 1 and gets onto Queen Mary 2. You know? So like right now, the New Age community is developing our ideas about stuff. We're communicating with each other, figuring stuff out, or even like the new political structure, like getting money out of politics. You know, we need to get money out of politics, but meanwhile, we've got all these like young aspiring politicians developing their own like political and economic and philosophical ideas about what they think the new system of a democratic politics should be, and you know, and exactly how to get the electoral college abolished and this kind of stuff, and you figure it all out, and then you present your new business plan, and people just go, okay, yeah, we'll adopt that, you know, but you can't adopt it until it's developed and fully ready to be installed, you know, and you don't have to destroy the other one and then bring yours over. Because what if you destroy the other one and yours isn't fully developed? Then you're going to have a situation that could be even worse than the system that was in place before. So what we should all focus on is how we're going to develop ourselves and our own ideas, and then we will naturally just take over. You don't even have to have some kind of coup. That's, you know, people die. People grow old and die. They'll just retire. And then so they're just like, oh, you know, every year you need to hire new, young, fresh faces. So the new young fresh faces are the new young fresh faces with their new ideas, and then they just replace. Yeah, so you don't need to break down anything, dude. What do you think your soul gambling blind spots could be? Soul gambling? My soul problem, gambling, blind spot. Personally, well, I'm an eccentric person, and I don't mix well with other people a lot of the times. I have a lot of I guess you could call it nervous energy. Maybe I was born when Comet Kahutek was between the Earth and the Sun, and comets really have a lot of nervous energy, like different. They bring just different new vibration of another cosmos into here and disrupt. It's really just disruptive, and a positive way to look at that is creative. It can make you creative and new. But if you're going to be creative and new, you're going to rub people the wrong way just from saying stuff that they think that you're not allowed to say. Like me, I piss people off on YouTube all the time. Like I said, like I did a video about Australia, and I was like, I didn't like that Australians were like, mean to the Aborigines, and so they're like, oh fuck you, I hate you. So my blind spot maybe could be, after a while I could, it's called blindisms actually. You know how Stevie Wonder does this? It's because he can't tell that he's doing it, and he can't tell that he can't see himself doing it, so he does it. So maybe I could develop the habit of just being so frank and so like blunt that people feel like I'm invading their personal space, even if they're watching a YouTube video and I'm not even talking to them directly. They think that I'm talking to them directly because they identify so solidly with their little particular kind of person that they are, that they get personally offended with me. So maybe my particular blind spot could be an ability to say something in a diplomatic way. It has to do with just how I interact with other people. But as far as the way that I understand things, well, I'm not good at math. I can't, and I have trouble focusing. I'm like ADHD. I could never learn math, because in order to learn math, you have to focus, because it's very linear. This step leads to this step, and like I wouldn't be paying attention between steps 4 and 6, so I couldn't get from 2 to 7 or 3 to 7 or whatever. I couldn't. So. And it would be hard, really, I could be a really good actor, but it'd be really difficult for me to be a good actor, because you have to focus on who that person is and what they are, and I can't. I'm more of like looking at everything at the same time. And so I couldn't understand like the mathematical side of things, or maybe the, boring stuff like finance or whatever. That would be as far as I can go about soul blind spot. Personal soul blind spot with me. Okay. Evidence the way the universe evolves. What do you think your gambling blind spots? I don't know what you mean by gambling. Could be, for example, and this is not an implication, just being creative. What if you found out that Bashar was actually a recruiter for some super advanced Scientology-like or something more bizarre group of entities, ultimately leading the human soul into the same shithole or worse as the reps? Yeah, and this is something that L. Ron Hubbard did. He's like, oh yeah, or Scientology does. We'll teach you to think for yourself. We're the individual creative thinker, And then you get into there, and they're like, you can't think anything. You have to think what we think. We're not even going to let you leave. If you try to leave now, we're going to grab you and throw you in the dungeon and, totally lie. So maybe Bashar's like, yeah, you got to understand this, you got to understand that. And then all of a sudden he's like, yeah. Now the aliens are going to land and they're going to invade and kill us all. So you have to jump in the spaceship that's going to land right behind the building. And everybody's like, and then escape to our planet to be the only ones who survive. And so they run over there. Okay, I'll do that. And all of a sudden, he like changes his personality all of a sudden. That would scare the shit out of me if that actually happened. I'd be like, oh my God. And, and I've heard people, ex-Scientologists, they're like, holy shit, I always thought that I was immune to being brainwashed, but I ended up getting brainwashed. So they're like, it's a really humbling experience. That's the exact word that they used. So if that happened, like with Bashar, like all of a sudden Bashar is getting autocratic in his ideas. Well, but I live by the golden rule. So if Bashar ever said one autocratic thing, one thing like something that you couldn't make sense out of, you couldn't even apply that to Bashar, because Bashar is just a figment of fucking Darryl Anka's imagination. He doesn't have any. All he is some voice giving us advice. He's not like any telling us to do anything, But if somebody suddenly changes, but if somebody ever becomes like demanding or autocratic, forceful, then you just instantaneously. Like me, I would just turn around and not listen to him anymore, you know, because it violates the golden rule. Unfortunately, Scientologists and fundamentalist Christian stuff, they don't understand the golden rule of thinking for yourself. And so then you can just take them in and, you know, so we need to install that golden rule of thinking for yourself, and two-way conversations with any and every level of society is okay. And then we're all good. If there was some critical and indispensable missing link standing between the human soul and its true sacred divinity that no other entity, however benign, was allowed to share with us, what would that be? Wow. If there was some critical and indispensable missing link standing between the human soul and its true sacred divinity that no other entity was allowed to share it with us. That's a good question. Well, it would probably be like the negative aspect of our past. Well, wait. Standing between the human soul and its true sacred divinity. Well, there's nothing standing between our soul and our true sacred divinity that they're not allowed to share with us. See, there's some things that aliens aren't allowed to aren't supposed to share with us, and that would be stuff like maybe like past wars, galactic wars that we may have had in the past, or something that could turn into a religion, something that could get really dogmatic and make people like focus on that and like blow it way out of proportion and make the universe seem like a really negative place, when in reality it was just some benign little quick battle that somebody had, or it happened so long in the past that it's not even in our realm of possibility anymore, or something like that. That kind of stuff they're not supposed to talk to us about. They're not supposed to give us too much information about technology. They're not supposed to straight up tell us how to create a free energy device, even though they do. They tell us how to make experiments to create really simple free energy devices, but they wouldn't like lay out the entire blueprint of how to make a free energy anti-gravity like spaceship that can fly to the moon, because you know people need to learn how to do that stuff for themselves so that they can know in the inner workings of it, you know. I mean, if they just give us the technology, we're not going to keep it. That's kind of what happened with the pyramids, you know. The aliens came down and gave us the technology on how to build all these pyramids and this, that, the other, and then the aliens died and went away, and then it just evaporated, you know, like or the Mayan, you know, with the Mayan calendar and everything in the Yucatan Peninsula. They just come down, they give them the technology information, and then they leave, and then it doesn't catch on. So, and now you've got this big mystery that's confusing the hell out of everybody, but what also gives us some like hope that there's something else out there. But if you're going to give something to somebody that you can build something off of, it has to happen incrementally, and you have to let us create it ourselves in our own way. And so, yeah, so they're not allowed to just straight up. Besides, we're not ready to have all that technology. What if any and everybody owned a spaceship that could travel all over the world? Now you've got all these biased, racist people like flying all over to try to wage war, you know, use it for a war. Like Kim Jong-un would be like, I have my spaceship, I'm going to go and kill Washington, D.C., or all these people in Africa. Or like, now we have our little flying car. We're going to go over to Telluride, Colorado and go skiing. So now you've got like 50,000 Africans trying to like swarming in on something and trying to, you know, I mean, and in the past stuff like that has completely destroyed civilizations. Like the Roman Empire fell because way too many barbarians came in who didn't know how to read or write, or didn't have any developed social codes and laws and stuff, or mainly just didn't know how to read and write, and come in and just don't have any value for the artwork and all this literature, and just tore it up, vandalized it. Like the Vandals come in and then we had the crash of the Roman Empire. We had the Dark Ages for a bunch of years, you know. You know, so if we give too much power to like barbarian, like, you know, tribesmen in Africa who are really superstitious, and they think they have superpowers because he's the tribe and he eats some kind of drug and all of a sudden he can talk to gods and now they all come over to America and they create these like societies. Just they come to America because we have a better infrastructure and they can make more money. They just leech off of us and then they create these like little primitive little little Africas here where they don't. Then it's kind of like the barbarians coming in, then they're not going to, they don't follow the rule of law and they don't understand why laws are laws and where the law come from. And they don't understand history and then it's just like a crumbling of society. You have to, stuff grows incrementally, step by step. And so that's why you wouldn't want to give too much technology to everybody all at once. Like if everybody had a car, then we would all use up our oil reserves and nobody would be able to drive, that kind of stuff. So that's the kind of thing that aliens aren't allowed to give us. And technology is something that stands between us and our true divinity. We can use technology to help us evolve. We always use technology, but we can't use it too fast. We have to, the thing that's more important than technology is actual spiritual knowledge, historical knowledge, ability to communicate, ability to express your ideas and, a knowledge of golden rules such as the right freedom of speech, freedom of thought, knowing that autocracy is destructive, this kind of stuff. So yeah, the gift of technology is a missing link that's critical and indispensable, but they're not allowed to share with us. I would say technology. And also, specific stories of the past that some people hold to be true that end up not being true. For example, Jesus Christ had children and moved to France. If you tell a bunch of Christians that, then who think that Jesus Christ was some kind of asexual guy who was castrated as a kid or whatever, didn't like women or something, didn't like children, then that could and now all of a sudden you tell them that's how it is, from this place of authority, like some alien who everybody has to believe, then maybe that could be too much of a shock to them. Bashar actually had a really good analogy. If you teach people too much information all at once, it's like getting a really fast-moving gear and just cramming it into a slow-moving gear. It's going to knock all the teeth off, See, the only thing holding us back from becoming utopian society is our knowledge, is our ideas about stuff. It's our religious positions on things. So the only thing that's going to make us go ahead is knowledge, communication, knowledge, and all that stuff. So once we learn and, study of history, then we won't repeat cycles. Like Scientology, they're violating all of these golden rules that we have learned and we have developed for thousands of years. And they're just violating all of them because the people who are involved in that church don't know history. They dropped out of school, or they weren't paying attention, or their IQs just genetically are not up to snuff, or something is wrong with these people. But it's all about education. That's what it is. It's education. That's why I'm working on my timeline, because it's a map of history, and turning education into art. That's the kind of stuff. Expression. And valuing every single person who wants to express themselves in any freaking way they want and smoke whatever drug that they want and smoke as much weed as they want. Like me. I'd love to smoke weed, but I can't because it's illegal in Boulder. Okay, so what would that be? Okay, so that's that. That was a good one, man. You really made my brain have to fucking work around a little bit, dude. I might have to pour some ice water on my head now. So yeah, if you want to do any follow-up questions to any of these, Mr. Rob and Ann, you're more than welcome to. And with that, I bid you adieu.